Okay, so today we're going to talk about stress. And stress is an important physiological response that we have, right, to life. It's evolved, right? We have it for a reason. And I guess one of the issues today is that it's easy to stress yourself out for no reason at all, right? Or because you're worried about the future, or because you have habits, or because stress is wired into our nervous system. You can actually wire in habits of being stressed out all the time, or being stressed out in situations where it doesn't serve you to be stressed, right? So I'm going to share a couple ideas on how to handle stress better. So I think number one is having awareness, like understanding when you feel stressed. And if you remember my story about the snake, I'm walking and all of a sudden I freeze and then I realize there's a snake there, right? So that's actually how your nervous system works, is that you respond before you actually perceive anything, all right? Which that means in real life is that you'll actually act stressed and be stressed before you actually perceive yourself as being stressed, or before you actually even perceive something that's stressful, right? And we're talking half a second here, right? And what that means is you have to actually cultivate awareness, right? Because otherwise you can just be stressed out and not even know that there's a problem, not even understand what's happening, right? So start to pay attention to what are the signs that you notice when you're stressed. How does it feel in your body? What is your mind like? What are your thoughts like? Start to be aware of when you're feeling stressed. I think that's the first step, is cultivate that awareness so you can do something about it. And then another great step is to actually learn how to cope with stress, right? So exercise is a huge way to get rid of stress. Meditation, breathing, breath work can help a ton. Just by taking deeper breaths, you can calm your nervous system down. So if you've never practiced breathing exercise, I highly recommend it. It's pretty amazing how just instantly it will change how you feel. And then there's also just problems, right? A lot of times we have legitimate reasons to be stressed out in life because we have real problems to deal with, right? And so by actually identifying your problems and facing them and working on them and solving them, you can eliminate a lot of those stressors in your life, right? But if you're not paying attention in the first place, or you don't have that awareness in the first place, you won't really be able to identify the things that are actually causing you stress. So the stress response you probably heard is you flee. So you run away, or you freeze, when there's a big tiger in front of you because you don't want him to see you, or you fight, right? You prep your nervous system so you can fight back. So each of these responses has an evolutionary purpose to it, right? And what I find really interesting is that all of these strategies actually work really well for all of our modern day problems too, right? So for example, let's say you're, none of you probably have a really stressful work environment, but imagine a time when you're working in an office and you had a really stressful work environment, right? If you're in a really crappy environment, one of the best things you can do is get out of that environment, right? Run away, flee, withdraw. Withdrawal and running away is actually a really healthy response to a lot of situations, right? Not a permanent response, it's a temporary response, right? To get out of that situation so you can calm down. And then after that, you can freeze, right? You can pause, you can reflect. You can take time to think about, well, what's really going on here? What's really the problem? What can you do about it, right? So it's your time to get a plan in place. And then once you've got a really good plan in place, you think that might work, then you go fight, right? You go back to that situation, you go back to that environment, you go back to that problem or that person, and you have the conversation or discussion or implement your plan to take action, right? To actually solve the problem. So if you remember that flee, freeze, and fight is a really great way to deal with a lot of common stressors in life, right? And there's just a lot of big problems in life. Because if you don't get out of the situation in the first place, it's going to be hard to think productively, right? Because when you're really stressed out, your emotional regulation is damaged, and your executive function, it's not damaged, but it functions differently, right? So it's really hard to think well or think creatively when you're stressed out. And another way to handle stress is perspective, right? Sometimes just by changing your perspective, what seemed like a really stressful situation or seemed like a big problem turns out not to be a big problem at all, right? This great quote I heard, that all of our problems started out as really good ideas, right? All our problems start out as good ideas. None of us is like trying to make our life worse or trying to cause problems, right? So, we all have the best intentions, and then we figure out later on what the issues are and then have to deal with them. And, if you really think back to your past, you'll probably realize that 99% of the things you worried about, 99% of the things that stressed you out, 99% of the problems you had, you don't even remember them anymore, right? Like they're just not even an issue anymore at all. So sometimes it helps to keep that in perspective that, whatever you're dealing with right now, for the most part, you're not going to be worried about in a couple of years or even maybe a month or even a week, right? Because you'll have solved that problem and moved on, right? So sometimes just getting it in perspective can really help you deal with the stressful situation. And that's why another reason why having a conversation with a close friend or a colleague or a mentor can be so helpful too, because they can give you some different perspective on your situation. And then what turned out to be so stressful to you turns out to not be so stressful after all. And then the final thing that can help a ton is relationships, right? Having good relationships with people, having someone who will listen to you, having that friend who care about you, having discussions, because a lot of times we don't really know what the real problem is until we talk it out. That's why therapy is just so helpful, because you can just talk about what's really going on and figure it out as you go. So another thing that can really help with a relationship is just asking for what you need, right? Like figuring out what it is that you need from someone, figuring out what it is that you need in that relationship or that situation, and then asking for what you need, right? I remember me and Sarah had this conversation about I'm not going to fire her and she's not going to quit. And I don't know. I felt really way better after that conversation, right? It's just a simple thing, but sometimes you just need to hear something from someone else so that you're no longer worried about it. It's no longer a problem for you because you have certainty around it. And you have to realize too that it doesn't have to make sense, right? So stress and emotions are sometimes things that you're not going to understand them, right? You're not really going to understand why you're feeling that emotion sometimes, or why the situation is stressful for you, or why someone just saying, I'm not going to quit, can make you feel so much better, right? But it doesn't really matter, right? If you find something that works for you, it doesn't matter if it makes sense logically, right? Do what works for you, right? And ask for what you need and what you want. And if you have those good relationships, it'll make your life a lot less stressful, and you'll be able to handle stress a whole lot better. So with that, let's do a quick writing exercise. So questions are, notice where you feel stress in your body. How does your body feel when you're stressed? What thoughts run through your mind when you're stressed? Which thoughts or sensations make the stress worse? Which thoughts or sensations reduce your stress? Is there a different perspective that you could look at the situation from that would change how you feel about it? And is there something you need to hear or to know or learn that would make you feel better about the situation? So let's work on this and then